you work hard and have faith and you believe in God, you can do anything you want to do. And I'm a testimony of it. I mean, I'm a living, breathing testimony. It's not something I'm just saying. Look at me. I mean, I show you my pictures from the car accident. You know, I'm in the hospital waiting because they didn't think I was gonna live. They didn't even have me in a room. They had me outside of a room when my sister came to see me because they didn't think I was gonna survive. You know, they like, we're not gonna give him a room because they don't think he's gonna survive. So let's not even put him in a room. You know, so when I hear those things, and then sometimes when I actually comprehend them, you know, kind of bring tears to my eyes. Then the other side, not tears of sadness, tears of joy. And then I just thank God for giving me this opportunity. So I know the calling on my life is greater than myself.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to athletes and coaches about their journeys and what advice they would have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. You can call me JT. If you want to hear my story and why I do this podcast, that will be in Season 1, Episode 1. But enough about me. Let's meet our guest. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. The man I get to speak with today, he is a husband. He is a father. He's a former collegiate basketball player. He's been a college coach, an AAU coach. Now he is a head varsity high school coach. Above all that, he's a man of God. And I know what he shares today is going to be an encouragement to anyone who would listen. So without further ado, Ervin Bryant, Coach Bryant, how are you?
I'm blessed. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. We're happy to have you. So, that said, let's get into it. You're a varsity head coach. You know, you were a player, but take us back to the beginning. Where did it begin for you? How did you fall in love with sports?
I thought it was sports. Probably just the tender age of before 10. Me and my brother, actually before me and my brother would play basketball in the house. My father had an old bar stool chair. We turned it upside down because it was too cold to go outside. So we turned it upside down with them beach balls, and we would play one-on-one. And that love took me to elementary, and elementary took me to high school. I didn't have the greatest high school basketball career that I wanted because I chased basketball, playing two sports. Actually, a better football player than basketball player. But for some reason, I thought I was a better basketball player because growing up in Chicago, everybody played basketball. Football was a secondary sport because it was too cold. Nobody wanted to go outside, so I was in the gym. Went to one of the storied high schools in America, Simeon High School. Left there with junior college. Played 2 years of junior college. Junior college was a decent junior college player. From junior college, went to the University of Arizona. Arizona, got out, came back to Chicago, started AAU because I loved basketball. I always knew I wanted to coach, probably at an early age. I used to coach in my neighborhood. I used to coach the girls' track in my neighborhood because I had ran track when I was in elementary school also. And it was just funny. So I've been coaching since probably about 12, 13 years old. Always had a knack for it. Loved how people poured into me. Love how it made me feel. Love how to make other people feel. Making them believe that they can be greater than themselves. And that's probably the reason why God has blessed me with an opportunity to coach now, because to be able to see the potential in somebody without this sometimes them seeing it in themselves, that's a talent, that's a gift. And I think God has blessed me with the ability to do that. And I thank God for that. And I don't travel that lightly. You gotta sometimes not pay attention to what people do or say. You gotta look inside their heart and how they really, really are. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I coach.
Yeah. Well, man, I love that beginning. It's too cold to go outside, but you make the most of what you have. And man, I remember, playing baseball in my basement with a mini bat and a softball, and it's fun when you love something, you make a way. And that can be a word, whatever it is, man. It's not about having the perfect scenario, but you got to take what you have and you got to make the most of it.
Right.
If we can back up, so you're this kid, you get into basketball, then you get into football. Talk to us a little bit about what high school was like for you playing sports. And you mentioned you had great coaches that believed in you beyond what you believed in yourself. So take us through kind of that journey.
But the first real solid coach that was my grammar school coach, Mr. Sesniak. When I was in 7th, 8th grade, actually in the 5th, 6th grade, he put me with the 8th grade team. I think I was in 5th grade. And I was like, wow, I'm playing with the big boys. And he saw potential in me then. But he was one of the coaches too, who believed in me. And he saw ability that I had in the school that I thought I would be a better football player than basketball. He was one of the first ones that told me that. Then led me to high school. I went to one high school, and the crime was so, well, I should say the crime, the element of school was so bad. I wasn't one of those kids, so I had to transfer out of there. And a coach from Simeon, Coach Hamp, may he rest in peace now, saw some potential in me, once again, as a basketball football player, as an athlete. And that's what he's always telling me. He's always telling me you're an athlete, and athletes can do any sport. It's whatever you put your mind to, you will become that with your athletic ability. And he poured a lot into me with a lot of time, spent a lot of time with me, believing in me, would never let me fail. And I always remember that, those stories. And when I finally got to junior college, I got with a junior college coach who also saw the same thing. And I remember him telling me, he said, you have the uncanny ability to make people smile and make people believe in themselves, as well as you can believe in get into yourself. You're probably going to be a great coach someday. And I must have been like 19, 20 years old when he told me that. I'm thinking, I knew I had been coaching prior, but I never thought about it as a career. I didn't even know there was a career in coaching, to be honest. Even though I knew coaches did it, I just thought it was something, people did as a side job. It's not nothing. It was a full-time job. I never even looked at it until I started realizing it's a full-time job. You can get paid to do it. That's when I really realized you can actually get paid to coach. I thought that's what's, so that kind of tucked me there. But it's back in the days when I was young, I had a lot of strong men who saw potential in me. And I thank God for that, because growing up in Chicago, you have a lot of different opportunities to do a lot of bad stuff, a lot of things that's not career orientated, a lot of stuff that can get you behind bars or dead. And I had people holding my hand, even when I would not believe in myself or when I would fail, they still were there believing in me. And that is, to me, is what coaching and what we are supposed to do. To me, I believe what we're supposed to do for each other. You find people, and as a coach, and this is not a coach in basketball, it's a coach in life. You're always pointing to people and making people better than themselves. And I think that's something that God gave me a blessed gift for me to do. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that God allowed me to do something I love to do. And nothing greater than getting up in the morning and going to a place of work where you don't consider it work. You get paid to do something you love to do. There's no greater gift on the planet than that.
Hey, that's the dream, right?
Yep.
Man, I love just so many things you said, even thinking about this quote that I can't remember where I heard it, but it says, when you don't stand for anything,
You'll
you'll fall for everything.
So you'll stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah.
Yes, you said it better. But even like you
One
said,
of my
growing up,
quotes.
yeah, there you go. You're growing up in Chicago. Um, you're seeing all these temptations, all these pitfalls. You probably saw a lot of your peers fall into things, and man, you need something to give you some purpose, some drive. And ultimately we'll talk about faith, and ultimately we know that to be God. But it's still good to have something like a sport, like an instrument, like a business idea, or something that you're pursuing, so you don't just end up going for anything. So how do you get from high school to JUCO? What does that look like? And take us through it.
That's a very interesting story because when my senior year in high school, I didn't get a chance to play with the team that won the state championship team. And probably one of the most legendary high school teams in the city of Chicago, Chicago Simeon. And I respect them. I still want to become my best friends off that team to this day. But by playing, and Chicago is a major market as far as high school basketball. So I worked out, kept myself in shape, and I played with all the players all the time, summer, spring, rec leagues, et cetera, et cetera. I had a guy who saw me playing basketball at a park district. And he was like, man, you need to be going to playing college basketball. And at the time, I was not so much pursuing basketball as much as I was trying to get back into football. But he was like, man, you have a better, and I had grown some more. Anyway, so he called up a couple of coaches that he knew, and junior college coach, and they came in and I had a private workout. And I had like 4 schools, 2 schools from Wyoming, 1 school from Minnesota, another school from Arizona. They all offered me opportunities. Well, the University of Minnesota at the time just changed coaches, and I knew the coach who used to work here. He was recruiting me at Texas. He had saw me come down to junior college coach, and he was like, man, I'll take you to Texas, but you got to go somewhere else. But then he told the Minnesota coaches about me. Long story short, the Minnesota coaches were changing, transition. Coach Dutcher was the coach up here at the time. And I was coming to go junior college for 1 year, hopefully transition from there over to the University of Minnesota. That's how I ended up in Minnesota. And Dutch and them ended up getting fired. Clem Haskins got the job. And Clem, the deal it wasn't no deal no more for me to come there. So I ended up leaving there and going to Texas JUCO with the hope that I'll have 1 year, I'll play down there, and then I'll go to the University of Texas. And the University of Texas coach, they got fired. So that coach went to Arizona, and I had a couple of small Division I offers at Sam Houston State, Texas, Arlington. North Texas State was a small Division I school at the time. And for whatever reason, my mindset was, I want to be a pro. So I thought I had to go to a big school to go there. Anyway, so he went to Arizona. He introduced me to Lute Olson, and they gave me an opportunity to go to the University of Arizona. And Lute Olson saw potential in me being a coach. And I always commend him for that as a man who really, really had a major influence on me, because his demeanor, he had a strong presence about him. And his demeanor to me was, you're a great presence. You're a good guy. People like you. You'll probably be a great coach someday. And I think that's all people have always spoken out of me. Nobody never told me I'd be an NBA player, but they always told me I'd be a great coach. So I started listening, and I went to Arizona with the intent to get under Lute Olson, because Arizona at that time, it just came off the Final Four at 88. And then I ended up going to University of Arizona the following year, 88, 89, and to 90 to 91. So it worked itself out. It got me into coaching, and that's how my road led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah. So were you getting in the game at Arizona? or
I wasn't good
or-
enough to play at Arizona.
so
I,
you
I
weren't
was a,
playing
I
there
was, I
yet?
was a. It was a blessing. My talent, honestly, was. I mean, it was guards there that turned out to be really good basketball players. So no, I was a practice guy. That's what I was. I played hard and I could play defense, but I couldn't score. Not at that level. I had some abilities, but didn't have the abilities that they. And man, you know what? And I say, and that's what I always tell kids, always today, especially my players. There's a place for you. You just got to know the right place to go, and you can't be upset if your dream does not fit the place that you choose to go. You need to go where the place is going to help you fulfill your dream. Well, my dream was to eventually coach, and it worked itself out. You know, had I gone to some other school and probably played, I don't think I still would have been an NBA player, but I wouldn't have had the connections of Lute Olson and the Jesse Evans and the people who are strong individuals in my life to this day. Well, I mean, Lute, rest in peace now, but that helped me. And looking back on it, you know, sometimes you say you wish you would have zigged, you should have zagged, but there's a reason why you did that, because you only can go by the information you have at the time. And God honor your steps and where you go. I mean, once again, I could have gone another way and things would have been worse. You know, I went this way and things are great. So I don't have no regrets. Those are opportunities that I have. So it's just to looking back on kind of what you're saying, I try to make sure my kids understand, go where it's going to be beneficial for you. It doesn't matter what level. Go where you're going to be beneficial, where you can gain something out of it. And when God has his hand on it, because that's another thing. God had his hand on every step that I had. Even if I made the wrong step, he still found a way to bless me within them steps to get me to the next step. And he actually led me in Maranatha. So that's why I say, so for me, all of it led me to this moment. So I thank God for it. I don't have no regrets.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would tell somebody like there's a balance, like you're saying. Chase your dream and believe in yourself, but also be humble and be self-aware.
Yep.
And you realize like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to the NBA, but here I am and I'm going to make the most of this opportunity here. And that led you into somewhere that you're blessed to be at. So, yeah, you should believe in yourself. You should chase your dream, and you should be humble and be realistic. Like, I tell people, like, yeah, like you can be anything you want to be. And the truth is, like, if you're not good enough to play in the NFL, you don't want to actually be there anyways. Like, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
So that's good. So tell us kind of some of that coaching journey when you wrap up playing, kind of where you've been coaching and what led you to get to where you're at now.
I started another one of them young stages, 23, 24 years old, coming home. I started working Chicago Board of Trade in Chicago. Great job financially, but I was not happy. Knew I wanted to coach. Did not have no real inroads to a high school to coach at in Chicago. It was almost the coaches here in Chicago. They wanted you to come and volunteer. And which at the time, you're 23, you don't understand. You thinking, yeah, man, I want to get paid, you know. But anyway, so I ended up.
Let me pause you. Pause you in case someone missed it. You said you had a great job financially, but you weren't happy with it. That's possible. And that's important. And man, if people could hear that, like you could, sure, you can be fine financially, but like you said, like
you're not fulfilled.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Had to touch on it. So keep going.
Well, you know, and that's to piggyback on what you're saying. That's when I say you have a calling. If you God has something in your heart to who you are and what you are to do, the financial aspect of it is on the other side might be great, but you're never going to be fulfilled. And if you're unhappy, no matter how much, it don't take all the money in the world is not going to make the inner person of you happy. It's only materialistic. And I was not happy. So I took the money then when I was working at the board. I started my own AAU program in Chicago. And I was the most happy. I was back coaching. I was helping some kids who were like myself, who had no direction, had people pouring into me, but did not know exactly where to go. Because when you're 16, between the ages of, I'm going to say 13, about 25, you're still kind of finding yourself. You're not, you think but you really don't have an idea what the reality of what the world is. You're forming some shapes and some ideas and some philosophies and some beliefs, but you really don't have a clue because you're kind of going with the wind. And I was fortunate that I had some men who I can lean back on at the time, give me some guidance. And that's when I got, Coach Redman, who became a mentor of mine, and Coach Evans, I reached back to him, then Lou Olson, and all of them kind of told me the same thing. Coaching is where you are supposed to be. And I honored that, and I started listening, and I pursued it. I never thought about getting an education. I never thought about being a teacher. That was never, when I went to college for communication. I got a degree in communication with the idea that I was going to play 10 years in the NBA and then go to be a broadcaster. So I had that broadcast behind me. And none of that came to fruition, and because that's not what God had for me. And I love what I do now. But yeah, that was my ultimate really goal, to become a broadcaster, to be on the side of that, talking about announcing one of the NCAA and NBA games. That was my job, to be the Ahmad Rashad. That's what I wanted to be back at that time. A former athlete who turned broadcaster, who was talking about the NBA. And so you never know what God has for you. At the same time, you have to be able to have your ears open and subjective to the fact that, you know what, there might be something else that God has for me greater than I have for myself. And I think this is where I'm at today.
Yeah. So you take that money, serve the AAU, and then where do you go from there?
I took that, and then I became a high school coach. Another good friend of mine had got a head high school job. He asked me to come over there with him. I went over there with him for 4 years as a high school coach. Rewarding experience. Wasn't a lot of money. I had to work another job. I had to take a job at FedEx to make ends meet, because the high school job at the time, the teaching was I think it was less than $24,000 a year. And it was back, and this is in the mid 90s, though not a lot of money. So I took another job, and then I got blessed. And I ended up taking 4 years of college job. I left when I go to University of Louisiana, 97 to 2001. So in March of 97, I got offered the job at University of Louisiana Lafayette, and I took that. And once again, very rewarding experience, what I wanted, but I had a daughter at the time. Me and her mom went together, but my mom was really on my heart. My daughter was on my heart, and my mom was in my head about, you need to be a father, come raise your child. So I left Louisiana, came back to Chicago, took a high school job, and raised my daughter. And I've been a high school coach in Chicago till she graduated. Well, I actually take that back, till my mom got sick. And then that's when I laid up, because I had to help my mom out physically and financially. And then she ended up moving to Minnesota, and I ended up coming up here to help her. And this is where I've been the last 4 years since my mom has passed. I've been in Minnesota.
Man, did you know, is it colder here than Chicago?
Yes, very much so.
Did you know? Or you were surprised?
No, because I had came up when I was in Minnesota. I came up in 85, 86. It was colder. And I tell everybody, Chicago's cold. Minnesota is that brutal cold. Chicago, we got wind, so the wind will come in and blow you, but once the wind stops, it's not as cold. Minnesota don't have to have a win. It's just cold. Yeah, you can stand out there and don't feel no wind. You be like, man, I can't feel my extremities.
True. So if you could sum up some of your coaching philosophy and what it means to you to be a coach. If you're finding this podcast valuable, take a second to leave a review, to follow on whatever platform you're listening on. This will help the podcast reach more people. Check us out at 1020words.com/DYA, TEN20words.com/DYA. You can check out our merchandise. We have sweatpants, hoodies, t-shirts, shorts. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off. There's also a button where you can support on Patreon, follow on Instagram at Dear Young Athlete, or inquire about being on the podcast or bringing Dear Young Athlete to your team or group. We hope to see you there. Now, let's get back to the episode.
What it means to me to be a coach, that's a great question. Because for me, it means to be a coach is someone who sees the best in a young person who they don't see in themselves. You know, the hardest thing sometimes is all the kids to me, especially at Maranatha, are absolutely wonderful kids. And I say that truly, not even from Brock. I say that behind closed door, whatever. They're absolutely wonderful kids. The best part about those kids have a foundation of faith. So for me, to be able to have a kid who has that foundation and knowing that we can confess and pray for him to become greater in that moment, that to me is probably the best part about coaching now. And for me as a coach, my philosophy has always been the same. You know, I try to take Lou Olson's philosophy. You coach every kid as if they've never played basketball before in their life. And it makes it easier to locate where that kid is at and where you need to gather them at. You know, you go in there expecting expectation of kids being great or they already can do this or they can do that. That kid won't get the same coaching that the kid that came in off the street who's never had coach. And I've always taken that philosophy from Lou Olson. I respected it 100%. Even though a kid might be an NBA player, I still treat them the same as if I was a kid that never played, because there's still something that you can help pour into him. The same thing, you're going to learn something from them. So my philosophy has always be that, and then listen, still learning, still gathering, because I don't know everything. I try to always be a sponge. I try to receive as much as I try to give. Just like having a conversation with you, I got to meet you. That's a blessing. I mean, that's a true blessing. I mean, I started reading your book and started hearing your story. You know, I mean, your story is a blessing. And I don't think people can understand how much of a blessing you are, because you could have easily, and you know this better than I do, you could have easily quit and blamed God, got on a soapbox and told everybody, man, why me, God, and why this? Stayed over there and yelled and screamed, and but you didn't do that. You tucked in a situation, and you're part of one of the reasons why guys like myself coach, because you take a situation and you see it, and you have two choices. You can take it and squeeze it and make bitter lemonade, or you can put it in there, add some sugar, stir it up, have some great lemonade. And that's what you did, and that's what you're doing. I should say that's what you're doing now, and that's what, to me, what coaching is.
Man, that's beautiful, and I think for a young person to have, you talked about being a young person, that you have these people in your life, these men that are pouring into you, that you respect, and they're calling out of you who you are. And that's what we're trying to do here on the podcast. That's what you're doing every day as a coach. And, even on days, I have days, I'm sure you have days where it seems like you're not making an impact, or maybe you had a bad practice or a bad game, but it's like, man, when we can zoom out and try and see the big picture, we can find that hope, that motivation to keep going and keep believing that what you're doing matters. And
Right.
I love what you said about being humble and being learning, always learning. As a coach, man, you always have something new that you can learn. But as a person in life, it's like to have enough humility to say, yeah, like God, God's ways are higher than my ways. I just read that this morning in my devotional. Now we're talking about it, but to be able to say, I don't know, I can't run the universe, and
Right.
just trust. That being said, I think is a perfect transition to hear a little bit more about your faith journey. You've alluded to your faith, but if you can speak to growing up and what faith was like, and maybe some pivotal moments in your journey.
I have a, well, I guess everybody says it's interesting, right? I accepted Christ at about 14 years old, not really knowing the magnitude of what it was, but went to church, said the sinner's prayer, uh, accepted him. But you, as a young person, you're not understanding. And as a young person, you're dealing with all the trials and tribulations and the things of life growing up in any city, for that matter, just not Chicago. But so you get bombarded with a lot of different scenarios and situations. You think you're doing the right thing, you think you're living the right way, but until you realize you're not, until you get older and look back. But that's part of who we are. My faith really took a stance, but I really had to believe on it about 11, 12 years ago in the middle of my coaching at Harlan High School. I was at a basketball team. I was coming back from a trip from Arizona. Wasn't feeling very well. Just thought it was, fatigue. Cause I know I really worked very hard. Came back not feeling well at all, but no major symptoms. Went to the doctor, had a headache. They ran some tests. You okay? Go home and take some stronger ibuprofen and send me back home. That was on a Monday. By Thursday, I was mid more flush, and I happened to go. This is testimony here. So I was at my mom to take her to the store, and she sees me. I'm sitting on the couch, and I fell asleep. I woke up, and she was like, "Wow, you don't really look good at all." And I'm like, "I'm feeling okay, just tired. I needed that nap." I said, "No, you're not. You don't look good." I said, "I don't know what that means," but she said, "Okay, let's drive you to the emergency room." So anyway, she talked me into it. I go to the emergency room. Thank God I did. I went to the emergency room, and I get in there and they run these tests, and they find out about 9:30 that night. They found out that I had my major aorta was tearing away from my heart. So I was having a dissection of aorta to my heart, and they caught it while I was sitting in the hospital in the gurney right then and there. Had I not been there, had I been in my mom's, I would have bled out. I would have died. Ain't no question, I would have died. Because when you have a torn aorta, it's almost impossible to get you in the hospital in time enough. You bleed out, and you bleed out over, and you lose oxygen to the brain, and your brain goes dead, and you die. But just so happened, I happened to be right there in the gurney, and they caught it, and they rushed me down to emergency surgery, and they were in the natural. They saved my life, but God spared me. God blessed me, saved my life. That was my first true testament of standing on faith.
Mm.
And then just last year, June 23rd, the devil tried to kill me again. I was in a major car accident with a truck, and the truck totaled my car, put me in the hospital. I was on life support, had a collapsed lung, kidney failure, internal bleeding, and and I have a torn aorta, so I have the artificial heart valve, which they were really worried about because I'm on a blood thinner, so they can't do anything to save me because if they cut me open, I could bleed out. So they had all these things. So they got me on a life preserve, and they tell my sister for about 7 days, if he can make it through this, he maybe could survive, but he'll be in a wheelchair. He might be confined to a wheelchair, maybe not walk again, maybe not do anything again. And they didn't think I was going to live past the 7 days. They thought that I was going to be dead. Once again, my faith comes in. My brother, who's a strong believer in faith, comes in. He prays with me and prays for me, and I believe. And the testimony is, look where I'm at now. I'm back walking. I'm talking. No wheelchair, no walker, no cane. I'm healed, and great anointing is upon my life. And God blessed me with the situation to get back into what He had anointed me to do in the first place, coaching high school basketball, coaching basketball through that being part of my ministry. And so that is where I'm at today. And now I'm full 100% committed because I'm like, the devil won't get a third chance.
Yeah.
You won't get another chance to kill me. I'm going to make sure that I do everything I do now is for the glory of God, and which I do. God has my hand on it. I'm watching how I just let Him lead the blessings that come upon me each day. The little bitty things. You can probably understand it from a person, from being a faith. It's the little things. It ain't always the big things. The big things everyone can see. It's the little things. You wake up in the morning, you thank Him, then He'll tell you, go this way instead of going that way. And you go down this road and it's a blessing down there. You're like, man, there's a reason I went down here. Well, there's a blessing there for you. You meet somebody like yourself. And I can tell you from there, I've been meeting people who got testimonies, who hear my testimony and be like, wow, that's a wonderful thing. And it gives me to bless me so I can bless my kids, bless the kids that play for me. And that's why I tell my kids, you work hard and have faith and you believe in God, you can do anything you want to do. And I'm a testimony of it. I'm a living, breathing testimony. It's not something I'm just saying. Look at me. I show you my pictures from the car accident. I'm in the hospital waiting because they didn't think I was going to live. They didn't even have me in a room. They had me outside of a room when my sister came to see me because they didn't think I was going to survive. They like, we're not going to give him a room because they don't think he's going to survive. So let's not even put him in a room. So when I hear those things, and it's sometimes when I actually comprehend them, kind of bring tears to my eyes. But then the other side, not tears of sadness, tears of joy. And then I just thank God for giving me this opportunity. So I know the calling on my life is greater than myself. It's not just, He didn't save me for me. He saved me to be a blessing for others. And I say, you're one of those blessings. I get a chance to meet people like yourself. I would have never otherwise met you if I would have been like, you know that. We both know that. So that's,
what I hear as you share in my heart is that God, He wasn't done with you. When it seemed like a couple of near-death experiences, it's like God, He still had a plan and a purpose for you. And I would say that to anybody listening, like, if you're alive, if you're breathing, like, you still have opportunity. God is not done with you, and you could turn. If you're far from Him, you could turn back to Him today, and He has a plan and He has a purpose for you. That if you walk in that will be the most fulfilling thing. It won't be easy. We know Jesus promised you'll have trials in this world, but take heart, for I've overcome the world. And it's like, man, if you're alive right now, if you're hearing this, like, God is calling you back to Himself and to His purpose for your life. I think that's a powerful word. and a good transition point. When I started this podcast, I said growing up I thought life was all about sports. Now I know that sports are all about life. And if
Good point.
you yes, if you could take one lesson, there are maybe a million, but if you could pick one lesson out of sports that you've seen influence your life, what would that be?
Perseverance. The days when my high school coach, I mean, the stuff that he used to say, we can't even say today. I can't even tell you the things that he told me because he used a lot of explicits. But uh, looking back on them as an adult and when I became a coach, I went to him and I asked him to give me some good advice. And the advice that he gave me is it goes back to perseverance, but he was just telling me, make sure that you're true to who you are, coach what you believe. Don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to the people who only watch your game for an hour and a half because they don't see the practice. They don't see the time you put into the kid. They don't see the relationship you have with the kids. And always be perseverance to the things that you believe in and stand upon them, whether nobody else believe in them or not. And I've always taken that as a point because I mean, the stuff that the language he used to use was unbelievable, but that day and time, it was okay. And I said, now as a coach, you know, I just preach perseverance and I preach positivity. Same message, but I just make sure I just change the words from and people call it positive. It's not so much positive. You pour into people, you set the bar high. And I set the bar high because it gives them something to strive for. You know, you set it low, they'll jump, they'll step over it. They set it high, they're going to reach, they're going to really work hard to get there. And so that's what I try to do. And that's the perseverance that for myself, the bar was always high. And when you reach that, you want to reach another level and another level. So, and you got to be persistent and you got to really persevere through what you said, the trials and tribulations to get to the other side. And I know that's not where you're going to live. They're there to help build you and give you faith and make you stronger.
Mm. And that's good. Like you said, that could be in your sport, that could be in the classroom, that could be in your family, with your business, you name it. Like what you said, so applicable. You got to keep going, keep persevering, keep fighting.
Never give up.
Never give up. Amen. Well, as we get to a close, you're here on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. So, like we do in every episode, we need you to complete that statement. Dear young athlete, what would you say to your players and to a younger Ervin?
Don't give up. If I could talk to myself as the coach, talk to myself as 15, I would tell you to work harder, appreciate the moments, every moment, every day, learn from them and live those moments and understand God has his hand on your life for a reason and get to understanding what that reason is because it's not for you, it's for others. Every blessing that I have is for me to give to others. So I tell my players the same thing now. I don't like to use the word, you don't know how privileged you are. I like to use the words, you are very privileged, and let's understand how privileged you are so you can become that blessing for others. Because every time you step on the floor, people are watching you, from a little kid to adult. Be that example. And that's what I try to do. Be that example that you might be the only Bible that person maybe read in their lifetime or in their life till they get a chance to accept Christ. So I want them to see me as an example that, man, something about them. If they don't know me, they're going to come and ask them a question, ask that I can give them an answer to what they've seen. and I hope my answer coincides to who I am. And that's the thing I would tell to my younger self: walk in what you have, accept and appreciate the moments, because you don't get them back. You never get them back. You might want them back, but you'll never get them back.
Man, and when you had like a near-death experience, you've lost somebody close to you, you realize, like you said, appreciate the moment, because you may not get the next moment that you're hoping for, and just, man, when you have conflict, when you have attitude, whatever it is, like, you gotta resolve that stuff, because you may not have that chance. And I would say that spiritually, get right with God today. You might not have tomorrow, but even in every area of life, your family, are you pursuing your dream as if you may not have tomorrow?
Right.
So I love that. That's a good word. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that maybe you didn't get to say?
No, I can't think of anything now, but I mean, I appreciate you having me on, and I thank you, and I hope I'm a blessing to others. Outside of that, I mean, if anybody wants to get in contact with me, they can get in contact with me through you, or they can just catch them in Maranatha Christian Academy. But no, I have nothing, nothing else to add. I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I enjoy the time. I enjoy talking with you. And I want to finish your book. I haven't finished it yet. I'm going to finish your book before we get together back in end of November, because I gotta introduce you like you introduced me.
Hey, well, no, I appreciate you coming on here, and I'm confident this episode, it will be a blessing to anyone that hears it. It will be an encouragement. It will help people's perspective on life. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? So that's good. And we can end there. So, Coach, right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Remember to follow on your platform and leave us a review. Check out our website linked in the description, 1020words.com/DYA. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off the merchandise. We'll see you in the next episode.